Hello.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right.
Morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm just driving,
Okay.
but I'm here.
All right. Jesse, how are you?
Hey, okay. It's been a very, very interesting, very full week of things that we might get into later, but it's great to be here. I was I think I said last meeting or something, but I'm genuinely looking forward to these meetings again, and I have a lot of fond memories in these meetings. But it'll be a fun time ahead this summer, so it's good to kick it off, I suppose.
Yeah, it sounds great. Hello, Vidhi, Jayadratha, Morgan, Jess. Welcome. So as people start to filter in, let me say welcome to our 2025 open source meetings. And I think that's, hopefully another good year of discussions and updates and production. So we've been doing this for 2 years, and we used to do kind of these scattershot meetings for GSoC, and it was helpful to have weekly updates, but it wasn't necessarily productive for other interests in open source. So we started this open source meeting so that we could have like a formal meeting for not just for GSoC, but all of our open source and open science initiatives that we have in the lab and in our different working groups. So let me give you, all right, so first of all, if, I know that Lalith, Jayadratha, and Vidhi are our selections for GSoC this year, so congratulations. We had all of our proposals, I don't know how many we got, like 11 between the two projects, or maybe 13, I can't remember. And we had to rank them, and a lot of them were kind of like pretty close, but we ultimately had to rank them for INCF, and then they got the slots to give us, and then we got 3 slots. So welcome to our groups. So Vidhi, of course, is in the Orel group, and then Jayadratha and Lalith are in the DevoWorm group. And so I'm going to go over a little bit about what that entails in a little bit. I'll give some onboarding materials, and then I will actually give a short lecture on open source. And then, if Jess wants to talk about something or Morgan wants to talk about something, then they can. So yeah, last year, the year before, we had a basic structure where I would maybe have a feature during the meetings. Jess would have like some discussion about project management and professional development. And then Morgan would discuss things having to do with his activities in open source and open science. So I am the head of the Orthogonal Research and Education Lab. I head up the DevoWorm group. I head up all the groups in Orel. Orel is the lab, Orthogonal Research and Education Lab. We have different working groups within that lab. We have, of course, open source. We have other types of groups having to do with computational research topics, ranging from psychology and behavior to biology, and a heavy emphasis on modeling and simulation. We also have groups on AI ethics and other things like that. So we'll be encountering those groups as we go along. I didn't want to give I might do that next week, give a full introduction to the lab and how it's structured. But for now, let's just say that, we've, you're going to be, over the next 3 weeks, you're going to be interacting with the lab and getting ready for your projects. But this community period is important to understanding where you fit into what we're doing, and in a broader context, not just for the project. So it looks like Sarrah is here.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, just got a few minutes late.
Okay.
Yeah, how's everybody?
All right. Right. All right. Yeah. So Sarrah was last year GSoC student last year in the Orora lab. She did the things with open source sustainability, and so that was her project. So I know Vidhi and Sarrah have been in communication about that project. So there's a lot of that in what's in the repository. There's a lot of stuff in the repository. The stuff from last year was Sarrah. There were also other people working on it last year. The stuff for the LLMs was Sarrah. There were other people working on reinforcement learning last year, the year before that, and the year before that. So we have this large language model component to the open source sustainability project. We also have some reinforcement learning stuff, and so that's all in that repository. I'll go over that later. And then it looks like Priyanka's here. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. And Priyanka, I think, is applied to the DevoGraph project.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the DevoGraph project. We'll be talking about that. We will also have our Monday meetings for DevoWorm, and I don't know how I want to do the updates for that yet. I mean, we could do the updates in DevoWorm, which would be good. We've done that in the past. We could also do updates here, but what might be more productive is to do our formal updates in that meeting, and this meeting kind of discuss other things, maybe kind of challenges that you're having in managing the project or whatever. I just wanted to keep the sort of the questions you might have about the data sets and the developmental biology in that meeting. And then this meeting would be more the open source aspects. And we can just kind of go over things and get a kind of feel for how to separate those out as we go along. But so when I'll talk about the onboarding in a bit. So when we're interacting in this meeting, I'd like to kind of give you sort of some sense, an appreciation for open source as an enterprise. Our lab, we've been involved in open source for many years. We've produced a lot of software. We've been involved in Google Summer of Code for, I think this is the 8th year of that. So we've had it for 8 years. We started in DevoWorm exclusively in 2017, and then moved on to having these projects in Orora. And depending on the year, we've had quite a few mentees simultaneously for multiple projects. So we're pretty experienced in how to manage this process. And I think the open source meetings will give you an appreciation for how open source is developed and what you can use it for. So, all right. So why don't I start off by going over some of the onboarding materials. Hello, Rohit. How are you? Okay, so let me go. So this is, again, these first 3 weeks are the community period. And it's not that we're not going to talk about projects or set up for projects. Some of you were accepted to GSoC, some of you weren't accepted, but you're still invited to work on projects and be involved in the organization. And so hopefully, whatever the case is for you, you get a lot out of this. But formally, this first 3 weeks is the community period, and that's important to get sort of oriented to the community that you'll be working in, figuring out how to do your projects, and making connections, because a lot of career development and open source is making connections with people. And so let's go through some of our resources. So as I said, the structure here is where we have the Orthogonal Research and Education Lab. We have working groups under that. DevoWorm is kind of part of the Orthogonal Lab, and also part of the OpenWorm Foundation. So that's a little bit different situation where it's kind of overlapping with something else. So the first thing I want to bring people's attention to is this open source and GSoC YouTube playlist. So our labs, or they're actually two different YouTube channels here. One is for the Orthogonal Lab proper, and that's what this is. And this has a number of playlists. It's the Orthogonal Research and Education Laboratory YouTube channel. So if you go to that channel, you'll get access to these playlists. We have playlists for different research topics, playlists for different meetings that we have during the week. One of those meetings is the Open Source and GSoC meeting, and that has been going on from May to about October of every year since 2022. And so we have these meetings online. We have, you can kind of get a cadence and feel for the meetings, what is going on, different projects, and kind of, the structure of how that works. And then there are other resources in here, like this one here, which is a talk, and this one here, which is a report on our GSoC activities for 2022 and the state of open source in the organization. So we have these videos that are kind of updates to the organization, and that's the next playlist. So if you go to the channel for Orthogonal Research and Education Laboratory, you go to the main channel, and then there are videos, but there's this tab called playlists, and the playlists then are the things that it's just a way to categorize different content. So these playlists are topical. We have the open source and GSoC playlist. We also have the open source and project views playlist, which are these updates that we've made on different projects in the lab, different working groups. And we've been doing this since 2022. So this playlist is key to get a sense of the kinds of things we're doing in the lab, we have done in the past, and kind of giving an overview of the state of those projects. So, I usually do a state of the lab once a year. So we have a state of the lab for 2022. So it just kind of goes over all the yearly activities. We have a Slack and a Discord, or a number of Discord channels. So all of you, I think, have either joined the OpenWorm Slack or the Orthogonal Research and Education Lab Slack, or both. I think if you're interested in DevoGraph, you should be in both. But that's an important part of the lab, because we're a distributed lab where we're distributed over many places. A lot of you are in India. Jess is in Boston, Massachusetts. Morgan is in San Francisco, California, and I'm in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. So we're all in different places, vastly different, separated by time zones and all sorts of geographic barriers. But we have this distributed model where we meet on Jitsi, we discuss things in Slack and Discord, and we have this community where we do all these great things and pull things together. So that's an important part of the lab. We also have Google Summer of Code's, of course, been an important part of our group for many years. And we approach Google Summer of Code not just as you're going to produce code, but it's in this larger community setting where you have, these open source meetings We, have different meetings that you're expected to attend. So you can give updates on your projects. You can troubleshoot things with other people working on maybe not the purely coding aspect of different projects, but working on like the conceptual aspects or the theoretical aspects or other things like that. So we approached Google Summer of Code in a specific way. We have other kinds of initiatives in the lab. So our two projects are DevoGraph and open source sustainability. We also do work in the area of like developmental AI or using developmental models, developmental biology, developmental psychology to build models for artificial intelligence for artificial life. So this developmental AI program overview is sort of an introduction to that work. We of course also have DevoWorm, which is its own group. DevoWorm is it's a group that's dedicated to computational developmental biology research. So our model organism is the nematode C. elegans, which is a worm, hence DevoWorm. But we're interested in all sorts of computational developmental biology. And so if you join, if you're interested in DevoGraph, you're going to join the DevoWorm meetings and the DevoWorm group. And that's a whole separate group from Orthogonal Lab in terms of the content. I mean, there's overlap in terms of people and sometimes in terms of topics, as you might imagine. But it's sort of a separate thing. And so, that when you go to the DevoWorm meeting on Monday, that we'll talk more about. Actually, we won't be having a meeting this Monday for reasons that are scheduling reasons. But the following Monday we'll have a meeting, and we'll kind of go. I'll kind of give a DevoWorm specific orientation there. And we actually we're very participant oriented. So I like to give everyone a chance to sort of be a contributor to the organization. If you're so interested, I want you to take a project that you're interested in, drive it forward, and do as much as you can on it. So Brian McCorkle is a good example. He was actually in Google Summer of Code several years ago, I think in 2022. And he was working on this active inference model for open source sustainability. And he gave a contributor update, which is just an update on that work and some of the other work he was interested in. We also have, infrastructural interests. So this video is on collaboration tools and open source. It's basically, what kinds of tools do we use to make open source happen? So everyone here is familiar with GitHub, but there are other tools that you can use to make open source happen. Other like licensing models and project management style things that you need to be concerned with. There are a lot of ways in which open source is not just like producing code and throwing it up on the web. There's all sorts of there are ways to make it successful, and that's kind of what this video is about. I also have a history of the lab here. Jesse contributed this video on his Society, Ethics, and Tech group. This is actually driven by Jesse. So Jesse, is one of these people who came to me and wanted to participate in the lab in like 2020 or 2019. And he originally came in interested in Bratenberg, the work we're doing in Bratenberg vehicles. And then he just eventually started to develop Society, Ethics, and Tech. And so that's been an initiative for several years now. And so you have the opportunity to build, your own initiatives if you so choose. And I'm not saying you have to, I'm just saying it's available. We've also done things with virtual reality. We're interested in developing virtual reality of this initiative, PHASIC, this interest group where we're interested in merging virtual reality with human performance, with artificial intelligence and other things. And so this is these are demos, and I have more to add to this in terms of videos soon, but that's another thing that we're doing. And then we have this video as actually from this last fall where we were presented to the Active Inference Institute, which is one of our partner institutions. And it's this overview of open source and open science. So we're interested in open source software, open sourcing things, but also open science, which is where you make science transparent, you make it open, publications open, protocols open, and the like. So this really kind of goes through sort of a vision for open source and open science. It was oriented towards the Active Inference Institute, but you'll learn a lot by watching this video. So I think that's a good place to go if you really want to get a sense of the Orthogonal Research Lab. And like I said, the DevoWorm channel has its own playlists. I'll go over that in a DevoWorm meeting for those of you who will be in those meetings. And then last fall, we're always involved in different virtual conferences and things like that. We do the Embodied Intelligence workshop. Sometimes we participate in an artificial life conference. We've participated in like the main conference in the past. A lot of the virtual conference opportunities we tend to capitalize on because of our distributed nature. This is the Active Inference Symposium. So Active Inference Institute is this likewise a distributed research institute. And we presented a number of things there. We did a presentation on cybernetics, which is another research initiative in the lab. We did this overview of open source and open science. Jesse did this lecture on management and leadership, which is kind of summarizing some of the things that we'll be talking about in this meeting this summer. He has a lot of perspectives on management and professional development through his career. He really thinks about this stuff deeply, and that'll be something that you'll, I think, benefit from as we go along. And then we have this guest speaker, Stefan Bowman, who is, works on this thing called NeuroDesk, which is a reproducible computational environment for running scientific analyses and simulations. Basically, it's like a virtual machine for doing reproducible science. So one of the problems with doing simulations, and as you'll find with a lot of your computational experiments, is that if you run them just on your computer, they don't benchmark well when you run them on another computer. So computers have differences in terms of performance. And so a lot of times people use virtual machines to make up for those performance differences. If you run things in a virtual machine, the dependencies are, can be prepackaged. You don't have to worry about those kinds of machine-to-machine variations. And so this was kind of talking about this in the context of neuroimaging. But it's, again, one of these things where you'll learn something new. Computationally irrelevant stuff. So that's something. Okay, so then the next thing I wanted to talk about, I wanted to introduce our websites for the groups. So like I said, DevoWorm is part of the Orthogonal Lab, but also part of an organization called OpenWorm. So this is the OpenWorm Foundation website. So OpenWorm is, it's a foundation that was based on a project that started in about 2011. And their objective was to model the nematode C. elegans, model it at the cellular level. And they wanted to simulate and model the entire organism, every cell, and its behaviors and everything else. And so since then, there have been a number of projects within OpenWorm that have sort of moved towards that goal. And we're one of those projects focusing on development. Now, it's interesting when you have an initiative like that, what kinds of directions it can take. So we've kind of moved away from really kind of supporting the core OpenWorm mission. I mean, we do some of the things that they're kind of fit into their pipeline, but most of the stuff we do now is sort of its own thing. So we're kind of separate from OpenWorm, but we're also associated with OpenWorm in terms of being one of their projects. But anyways, what I wanted to draw your attention to was that there are a number of projects within OpenWorm that might be interesting to what you're interested in. So they have things like the OpenWorm browser, which is this 3D model of the worm, and you can launch it and you can zoom in on different parts of the worm. You can rotate it, and it gives you this full body. It's not really a simulation; it's just a 3D model, but it gives you ideas of what you can do in this space. There's also NeuroML Connectome, which is where they've modeled the connectome of C. elegans in NeuroML, which is an XML language, modeling language. There's Geppetto, which is a simulation platform. Other projects, Cybernetic, which is a biophysical worm body simulator. So there are all these things that have, all these tools that exist for modeling the worm. So it's not just development. They're, like modeling the developmental process, which is what DevoGraph is about, and working with hypergraphs. There are all these other modeling paradigms that, may fit into what you're interested in. It may be that you learn about this thing and you start playing with the tool, and it might lead you to new places. So I would encourage you to kind of check out what's happening in OpenWorm, seeing what kinds of tools they've built, seeing what kinds of perspectives they take on things, and then if it's interesting to you, interact with those people. I also like, for the people who are interested in DevoWorm, and I can re-up this. I sent out open house materials from the OpenWorm Foundation. They're a bit dated. They're from like 2016, but they give an overview of a lot of the projects. I can re-up that in the next DevoWorm meeting. So that's, but this is the kind of thing, you do in the community, community interaction period is, you kind of explore the resources of the organization you're in and what they have to offer. This is the OpenWorm GitHub repository. So OpenWorm, one of the things about open source organizations is they usually have some GitHub repository that's organizational in nature. So this is the OpenWorm repository. And from here, we have different types of tools. We, of course, have the projects. DevoWorm has its own set of GitHub repositories. But, the idea is that you should be able to, and this is going to be true of anyone doing any sort of open source project, the expectation is that you'll produce your own repository or directory in a repository and, have the files there and the documentation so that people can, clone that repository and execute the software. And that's a level of kind of what we want to do. And so any of these things, you can clone these repositories. We have repositories here for different projects. They have different modeling papers where you can run models by cloning the repository and then running the software. And the papers associated with them are linked here. There are things like the Connectome toolbox. And there's a Docker file that you can download to your machine and run all the simulations that OpenWorm has to offer. So there are a lot of tools in this repository if you're interested in OpenWorm and DevoWorm. This is the Orthogonal Lab website. So this is the website that we have for the Orthogonal Research and Education Lab. It's has a lot of different resources here, links to Slack and the Discord teams, or Discord servers, Slack teams, different links to our affiliate organizations, our meeting spaces, and we do different research. We do things in simulating biology. We do things in an area called neuro AI. Of course, we have our open science and open source. We do things in informatics. And then, of course, we have a lot of people who have come through the group. And we're actually on Google Scholar. You can see some of our publications. And so on and so forth. So this is a resource where if you go to this, you can learn about our organization, our different, things that we're doing. We have a calendar down here for our meetings. That's not always up to date, but you can get a sense of what kinds of meetings we're running. And then if you go to this link, this is the DevoWorm website. So if you're interested in DevoWorm, this is our website for that. Again, we have a lot of our media and public lectures. We have different demos in Jupyter Notebooks. We have a publications page, GitHub, or GitHub repositories, our data sources. So if you're interested in data sets, we have a collection of data sets. And then also the people who have been in DevoWorm over the years. It's been quite a few people. So it's interesting to look back and see who's been involved in DevoWorm and what they're doing now and what their interests are. And, again, that's a networking tool. You go to these people links, not only here, but back on the Orthogonal Lab website. You can get a sense of who's been through the lab, what they're doing, what's possible. And, maybe it's someone you know. And there's quite possibly someone you know in that list. So those are the websites. This is the Orthogonal Research and Education Lab organizational repository. Again, we manage our GSoC projects through here. This is the GSoC repository for mostly for open source sustainability. You can go through this, and I know that the people involved who applied to this project know about this repository, but this is where you're going to be doing your development. I'm going to assign you a directory. I haven't made 2025 yet, but 2024, had different things in it. So we'll figure out where to put give you a working space. And I may do that for the DevoWorm people as well. And that's a totally different repository. So bear with us as we kind of figure out where you will be hosting your work. Because, I want people to weekly give an update on their projects, either in this meeting or if you're in DevoGraph, the DevoWorm meeting. And then I want you to, keep your project repositories updated or your project directories. And, just basically push things and develop things on GitHub rather than doing it on your local machine. Because what happens on your local machine is that if you develop just on your local machine, you can lose files. You can not have things synced with what's being submitted onto GitHub and things like that. So a lot of things can happen. GitHub offers version control, which of course is useful for controlling, what's in your files. Make sure that things don't get overwritten and the like. So that's, I think, a tour of our organizations, kind of some of the resources you'll be interacting with. And, it gives you, I think, an idea of what to expect over the summer. So did we have any questions? Okay. I don't know, Jess, did I miss anything? Should I mention anything else? Or?
I think that's a solid start. I'll be on camera in a few moments to say hi to folks. I think it's a really nice overview. There's so many different moving parts. I do want to say for those who maybe saw the playlist and are like, oh, I should watch all this. No, you don't have to watch everything in the playlist. That was sort of just a, hey, here's stuff to peruse that may be of interest to you. You don't have to know the history of every single project that we've ever done and has been recorded. So that's not the expectation, but there's a lot there if you want to go into it. I know that you've probably all spoken to some of the mentors from the projects or looked about them already. And you're welcome to do that. But as part of the community period that we're starting here, the websites and the playlists are kind of we're giving you a very broad tour, and if you find things that are, hey, I had a question about this, or what happened to this project, or you want to ask us, please do that. Do so in Slack, especially in the Orthogonal Slack. There's the Google Summer of Code channel, the GSoC channel. Put any or all of your questions there. We really encourage you to share your questions. Don't you can always DM us if you want and you don't feel comfortable. But we really do encourage you to all put questions or comments, especially in the community period, in the shared channel, so that way everybody can see them and talk about them, because that will come up, and that's you probably have a lot of things on your mind that come up in the next few weeks, and we expect that, and we're glad to have you to talk to you about all that and find a way. But I think that's the only thing that is there. I see some questions in the comments in the sidebar too, but yeah.
Thank you for the nice presentation. I just have few quick questions. So like you mentioned about a lot of different projects, and there would be a lot of things going on in different projects where we can contribute. Either we can look up the existing notebooks and then contribute in that way. And there would be some white paper work as well going on where we want to contribute from the theoretical side of this. So do we have any specific meetings for each projects? And then there would be group of people who are already working on some of the paper, so we can just directly join them, or we have to start something from our own research and then we can collaborate in, like, we have to initiate one, or we can start with the existing one as well. So that's what my question is.
Yeah, so I think it's easier for people to start where they're at. So like a lot of the people who applied to DevoGraph are interested in hypergraphs. And in DevoWorm, we do a lot of stuff with networks and graphs. So that I would stick with that like initially. But I mean, the idea is to like look around and say, what is interesting? How can I go from like hypergraphs? And, if you're in GSoC, you have to sort of stick to your project. But if you're not a formal GSoC student, if you're just doing open source development, then you have the freedom to kind of apply those hypergraphs to something else or to work on the thing you proposed. But the idea here in the community period is to develop sort of this appreciation for other things going on. So like, the hypergraph stuff is going to be rooted in developmental biology. And we're going to be talking about over the summer about how the technical work you're doing applies to some of these biological questions. So it's not, especially in DevoWorm, it's not as simple as just saying, I'm going to work on hypergraphs and that's it. And, leave me alone. You have to have this broader context of things.
That was important to look forward who are already working, so we can get their feedback in the direction what we are thinking is correct or not. So can we know who already got in as a GSoC contributor for the DevoGraph, so that we can connect with them and discuss what the proposal they already have, so we can voluntarily contribute with them for.
Yeah, so the formally accepted students for DevoGraph were Jayadratha and Lalith. So they're in the meeting. So they, and again, like I said, the selection process is basically we got so many slots, and a lot of people, I think, had good proposals. They were hard to kind of differentiate and rank because they were all pretty good. But that's, that was the ranking we came up with. It kind of fit into where we wanted to go with it. And so, but we do have, and I'll mention this in the DevoWorm meeting, we are working on this preprint on hypergraphs. So probably the next DevoWorm meeting, I'll go over the sort of the vision for hypergraphs, our preprint, and then of course, we have people that have done this in the past. So So Mehul.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure. Then I can follow up with them. Yeah.
So Mehul was last year's GSoC student, and then of course, if you go to the the DevoGraph repository, you'll see like a list of people who have contributed
Yeah.
over the past, I think, 4 years now. So
Yeah. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Okay, yeah. So I don't know. Morgan is probably driving, but he has a lot of interests in open source. He's does things with an organization called NeurotechX, and they do a lot of things with neuroscience. He has a lot of interests in like computational psychiatry, organoids, things like that. So Morgan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, congratulations, everyone. Lovely to see another group coming in. And I am actually at the AI Bio workshop here, Foresight Institute workshop. So,
nice.
yeah, apologies that I'm not on camera right now, but yeah, looking forward to seeing what people are working on. Would love to yeah, if anybody's got questions about open source projects that sorry. Yeah, very, very happy to answer questions or help with anything that I might be able to. So please reach out to me if you've got any questions. And yeah.
I would also encourage folks to keep Morgan in mind as you go through the project, and even later. Like, Morgan has a tremendous amount of experience in just basically being in a whole bunch of different groups around like neuroscience and neurotech and neuroimaging. So like, he's very super connected, and you won't really get how much he's been exposed to until you like pay attention to him and look at what's been going on. So keep that in mind. One of the things I'll be getting into is sort of the professional development side of things, and say more of that maybe in a few minutes. But like, I know Morgan's not here, and Morgan's often got things to do or places to be. But just to point out, there's a lot of resources here in the lab, and Morgan's definitely one of them. So definitely ask him questions if you find anything that comes up.
Please, yeah, reach out anytime. And yeah, hoping to learn get some more details about C. elegans work here, and also about kind of AI scientist tools. So should be an interesting meeting that it is going on tomorrow too. But I'll try and duck out for the weekly meeting.
Do a cameo for our Saturday meeting.
Yeah. All right. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's another point for our Orthogonal lab people working on open source sustainability. We also have, of course, our Saturday meeting, which is Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern time in North America. And that is our, like, in the DevoWorm people don't need to go to that, but that's kind of our general meeting for the Orthogonal lab, and we do kind of focus on the open source sustainability stuff, but also AI stuff, neuroscience, computational neuroscience, and all that. So it's like that whole topical area. I know that let's see, Vidhi and Sarrah usually attend that. So that's
Okay, sorry. Good.
Oh, go ahead. No, I'm done.
Yeah, I was just saying, Saturday meeting is a big, often 2 hour, sometimes more than 2 hour meetings. That is like a standing general lab meeting on all manner of everything, and it is not mandatory to attend, especially if you're doing your Google Summer of Code stuff. You can come and go. It's not expected that you're there for the whole time, just to manage the expectations about that. But it's encouraged if you can go. I know it can be late. I know it's kind of later now, especially for some folks in India and other parts of the world, and it's kind of actually I forget, it's actually a little bit earlier. It starts at 10 a.m. But again, like you don't have to be there present. We do record them just like everything else. Well, like many things that we do anyway, to try to make it somewhat accessible asynchronously. But if you can stop by, you're encouraged to do so, and you're welcome to do so.
Yeah, I know. It's a Saturday morning meeting, but it's like evening in India, so
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting some pretty good thanks in the chat here, and some appreciation. So yeah, definitely check out the chat here. And so just a word about like technology over the summer. So a lot of times I've had people in the past, their computers have failed during the session, during the summer, and that. So I mean, that's something. Usually the stipend that you get with GSoC, you can buy a new computer. But if you have those kinds of problems, that's okay. We can schedule around it. That's why we worked out the schedules. And the idea was, that you would that was a rough draft of how things would proceed. And you always have adversity within that. You always have things like, you'll run into problems running a tool, or your computer dies or something. And that's something that we can deal with during the summer. So don't feel bad if that happens. Don't feel like it's the end of the world. We've also had problems in past years with finding enough computational resources. If you're doing things like hypergraphs, or if you're running large language models or reinforcement learning models, then that's something you'll need a lot of computational power for. And unfortunately, we don't have access to supercomputers. The best we can do, I think, are Colab notebooks and, like M4 chips and stuff like that have a good amount of power that can help you do that.
Yeah, I was just saying, so local GPUs also maybe if somebody has access to their university's lab GPUs, or even like NVIDIA GPUs on normal laptops, like if you happen to have, of course, a GPU laptop, running LLMs locally these days has like it keeps getting easier, thankfully, and very miraculously. But they've become like even smaller in size, since like even more powerful ones have become even smaller in size since I did my GSoC. So there's definitely ways to even run LLMs or even big computational models. Of course, Collab is one way, but even if you have your own GPU setup in your personal laptop, that will also be possible to set up. And yeah, I just wanted to say hi as well. Earlier, when I said hi, I was just a little frazzled. So, hi, I'm Sarrah. I think I've met Vidhi already, but the rest are new names and new faces. And Mehul, of course, I know from my time. But yeah, hi, I did my GSoC. And another thing I would like to add to all the tips that Bradley and Jess and Morgan gave is that, so even when I came into the lab, I'd come from a purely technical background, and I'd come with my knowledge of AI and ML and data science. And coming here, attending these meetings, I came into the knowledge of the domain specific knowledge. I don't have that much of the DevoGraph one still, but at least the open source sustainability part, or even the other neuroscience related things that are spoken about. So basically what I was trying to say is attending these meets, as Jesse said, is very encouraged, because it will help you understand the overall perspective of what we are doing apart from just the technical. And that will in turn make your technical perspective better as well. So yeah, that was it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would agree with that. Go ahead, Bradley. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was good into the final thing, but if you had something to say.
Oh, I can do the plug thing, but I'll wait until folks are ready.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, like, so yeah, maybe like you can do before me. Just like first of all, like, sorry, I was a little late to the party.
Oh no.
So first of all, yeah, congrats everyone. Congrats Vidhi, Lalith, Joy. So like, I already like have interacted with Lalith and Joy, and all the points like I think are covered. By the way, my name is Mehul, and I did my GSoC last year with DevoWorm. So I worked on the hypergraphs. Just like a quick introduction of mine. And any points, so I think all the points like are well covered by Bradley, Jess, and Sarrah. But like few points, so I would like to re-emphasize. So like this is based on my experience. Like I think I am not a right person because I did not always followed it very well. But I think those are very important. So first, like as Bradley highlighted, like contributions on GitHub. So I think if it's done every week, apart from definitely it has a lot of benefits that we don't lose content and files, etc. But also it keeps us like in the check. So for example, if we have some idea in the mind, if we are like putting it, even if it's small every week, so that every week's contribution adds up a lot, even though it's like very small. So that is like really useful if we are pushing out even like a very small thing every week. Yeah. And also like right now I am working in a research based organization, sort of like now it's industry. Before that I was working in academia only. So what I've observed is like when we are in a meeting, like when everyone is a meeting, those meetings are very critical to attend. Like if we somehow miss it like once a week, it's not just like we miss to give updates. We missed a lot of information which we could have soaked in from different people. So even if we don't have any updates, it's really good to join these meetings weekly. So that is like one point. So I am not a very good person to say that because I didn't always do that, but still I think these 2 points are like very important. And yeah, I think Joy and Lalith are like phenomenal researchers. I have like seen their work. I have also like worked with them and discussed a lot like during this like discussion period before like during the proposal submission period. So yeah, it will be great to work with them. And I was also seeing Vidhi's proposal like yesterday. So that's I think pretty good. I'm very excited to see how map algos can be applied in like open source sustainability, right? Yeah. So that's it from my side. And also, yeah, last thing I think I have talked to Priyanka over LinkedIn. So I think she is also like into graphs, if I'm not wrong. So definitely, I'm looking for like some collaborations. Yeah. Thanks, Bradley.
Yeah. All right, Jess.
Okay, yeah, we've got a very short amount of time, and I'm totally channeling the event I was at yesterday because there was the guy ran it very well and kept everything kind of rolling, and I'm gonna try to fit everything I want to say in a very short amount of time. I'll come on camera briefly and say hi. I think it's actually a perfect segue, unscripted, excellent pass to me to talk about what I wanted to talk about. And that is sort of a little bit of the professional development component of things and a little bit of some projects that I've been working on and also an event that I attended this week. I actually wrote this comment earlier in the chat because I was going to mention I have a Substack around one of my projects, and it was sort of the Bradley mentioned from the Active Inference event, a talk I did on leadership or like project management leadership stuff at Active Inference. So I think 5 months ago or something. And if you go here, you can kind of see where a bunch of articles that are written and continue to be written there. There's actually many, many more things coming there. But that will be sort of where a lot of the outputs come, and I'll be discussing some of the things that come up here ahead. So it's still in development, but there's things there. Also, hi, I'll finally be on camera. I have my orthogonal swag t-shirt on today, custom ordered. So I can't like go to a shop and have them send out or anything, but maybe later we can try to do that. But I had this made a while ago and I found it before the meeting and it's like, yay. So more about that later. What I wanted to share also is that to bridge from where Mehul started off, it was sort of like a lot of this is sort of a first time experience for folks, and we know that, and we're okay with that, and we're going to try. Part of our job in the professional development sense is to do a little bit of scaffolding and identifying, okay, we may be here, or some people may be here in terms of their experiences, but let's try to prepare you so when you do go to industry, when you do go to academia, when you do start maybe your own startup, or when you go into progressing your career, whatever form it takes, and how much it's in a very established field or a brand new field, what that might be. So a lot of what we want to do is seed into this. And Bradley and I have been talking about this for a long time. And Bradley has teaches a course on open source project management, I think it's called. And part of why the education, the research and education part of the t-shirt is, or the t-shirt with the logo and the lab is, we do care a lot about the sort of pedagogical teaching component of what's happening here, and much more than many other places that I've been in. And so we will talk about that in general, and our it's sort of always on topic for us, but there are specific things we're trying to do. And we've had kind of some, targeted discussions over the last year, and now this year, finally, there will actually be some articles to look at, which some I've written there, and some are in the project, and some I have some people working with me on them. And I'm also going to be doing like some interviews too, and events. So my other plug, I can share my screen properly here. Let's see if this is going to work. I think this is working now. Okay, yeah. I mentioned this. There's some things here, and we're kind of doing some. I've had some actual in-person events too, or trying to do some social things here. If anybody ever gets to the Boston area, and I'll be in San Diego a little bit later, let's meet up and do that. But in the meantime, I was actually yesterday, I was here. I was at MIT. And I was asked to be, I sort of volunteered to be a judge for their AI Ventures Day, which is basically, they have a course. I think it's mostly undergraduates or other things. No, it's it's graduates too. It's actually a lot of graduates. But so you're getting, it's a very much a front row seat at how do you, this is super industry related of like, what's your market? How do you pitch? All of the really, really, really high level things that we're not really going to focus on here. But just to say in mind that when we're talking about things, we will have some aspects of that's what you want. If that's what you want to do and where you want to go and how to prepare you for that. This is a really cool event. You can read more about it here on this, or also here's the actual, it's sort of a course, and they've developed this program how to churn out these projects, and it's a very interesting thing. And more about we'll talk more about that later. Maybe talk more about it next time, because I know we're kind of short on time today. But the point I wanted to make here is it's when you're at the stage that you're at now, or in this program, this is the best time to ask questions, to develop consistency, to make mistakes. We are a very supportive community, and we're expecting you to stumble and find your way, and it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be. Some people could, like some people have really good projects. They could go present at some big thing right now. But if you're not there, that's okay. Like we are here to help you get familiar with these spaces. And if you want to do a lot in an open source space down the road, or if you want to get towards productizing things later, I don't know if Hussein's going to be joining us, but Hussein is someone who's been a former contributor and a former mentor, and is doing deep in the weeds of trying to get getting a patent for their work, and doing stuff with someone else from DevoWorm. So he's a great resource. And we have people in the lab that are doing really cool stuff that you get access to. And some of the basics of this are just very important, and it's not really a main dish or the main part of Google Summer of Code, but because it kept coming up in all of our discussions, part of these Friday meetings will have a little bit of that component that hopefully dovetails or builds things out too as we go along. So I just wanted to kind of raise my hand and say like, hey, like if you have questions about that kind of stuff, feel free to ask me, and Bradley and Morgan and other folks here too, because we do want to get you ready for what comes after Google Summer of Code 2. And we have a lot of experience. I'm doing a lot in that space recently, and for a while, but now like I'm really being able to focus on it finally. So there's a lot of like cool projects and cool opportunities coming up there too, including like things like how do you talk about your project? How do you like have a project blog, or how do you put it on LinkedIn, or how do you do these things that are much more forward facing, but maybe important for what's next. But for the time being, the community period is here, getting to know us, getting to know the projects and the labs is that's all you really need to worry about right now. So don't feel like you have to do all this other stuff. It's really just getting through one thing, the next step. But just as a preview for things later, those are on the table, and you'll hear more about that in the weeks ahead. So I look forward to having those conversations with you all.
Yes, thank you, Jesse. That was really good, and I'm interested in the MIT course you mentioned, AI Venture Studio, and some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Always interesting stuff, and of course your Substack that you run, you'll have like a number of things on project management stuff, and you're doing the data plus direction initiative.
Yeah, for this, a really brief plug. I recently graduated from a master's in data science and at San Diego, and I as Bradley mentioned, I also did like society ethics tech. If one of the best things about this lab is that you actually get freedom and support to build out bigger projects over time if you want to, which is like people don't realize how critical that is, to have like people who actually give a damn about what you want to do and will help you do it. And I've been a huge benefactor of that. I've made a few different working groups, and I've even made a group called JoPro, which is like a fledgling incubator organization for other projects that kind of has been almost like a spin-off or sister organization to Orthogonal Lab, and it's in development. But all of this has led to certain. The society ethics tech thing was a working group I made a while ago, and I've had a really great opportunities and kind of working with people, and then it's kind of churn, and then eventually you get to something else. And the latest version of all this stuff is the Substack that I mentioned, which is really almost like the art of projects and doing things in innovation spaces, which we'll be talking a lot about. And then data and direction, which is a bit more data science and data ethics oriented in terms of, yes, technical tools, but also like the messy side of how do you deal with like the frameworks and the policy and data management and the things that I think are really important, but often pushed to like sort of elective spaces that people don't really want to talk about, but that I happen to love and think are really important. So all of this is kind of bridged from my time here, and then during my capstone projects at my program, my degree. It's like, okay, like I have time to do this stuff now and make these projects with them. So more about those projects later. I'll be posting about them in Slack, and I'm posting a lot about the updates actually on Substack. So follow that there. But yeah, another hint and promo for the lab, and a lot of once you get to know the lab more, real talk is going to just seem super disorganized. Like what's going on? Okay, like it's the way it is right now, and it's messy, and it's always weird to come into lab spaces that are interdisciplinary and have different projects coming and going. We know that, and we'll try to help you through that as much as possible. But you also get a tremendous opportunity to, if you stay with us over time, hopefully learn things to take you to wherever you go next, and get the opportunity to really build out projects over time, and also like working groups or like collectives around those efforts too. So generic plug for those projects and for what's really cool here. But we hope to see you see everything you want to do flourish and grow, and over the summer we'll be a part of that. So we look forward to that.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. Sarrah, did you have something to say?
Well, no, not in particular. I think I said everything. I never said welcome and congratulations to all the contributors. So yeah, just that. Did I lose network? Okay.
Okay. Okay, so one more thing before we go. I just wanted, and I'm not going to do this today, but next week we're going to talk about, I'm going to give this open source lecture, and it's, I teach project management, and this is the open source lecture from that class. So next week we're going to go over sort of, why you might want to work open or do open source, some of the distinctions of that productivity model versus like a proprietary productivity model, and some other things. I can't remember what else is in here. But basically going over some of the, like things like open source genealogies, and then how, you use social capital to keep your open source project together, especially if you have an open source project with like, hundreds of collaborators, like something like Linux, or even the OpenWorm Foundation, where you have like, project leaders and then a bunch of people doing like this very fractional participation, making contributions. You have to make them feel like that's something that's worth their time. You have to, they have to trust you, and so on and so forth. So I will talk about that next week. And so yeah, then next week we'll still be in the community period. So that's part of the community period. And then if I missed anything, I will probably mention those things as well. So everyone have a good week, and see you next week.
Yep. Welcome everyone. Thanks for stopping by, and looking forward to the summer with you, and congratulations again.
Yes, so these will be weekly meetings at this time, the time that we joined today. So, all right. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right?
Thank
Oh,
you.
did you have a question, Sarrah?
Saying I think we had made a message last year, right? Compiling all the meeting timings, which day is devographs, and we can make a similar one for this year.
Yeah, I can send out a meeting list. Yeah, I will. Okay.
It's Monday, Friday, and Saturday, right?
There's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
a Google Calendar for Orel that I'll post in
Yeah.
Okay,
in the
yeah, I
Slack.
forgot where it
Yeah,
was.
I need to. Someone else actually just asked me about it, so I'll put it there and get it out. So important thing. Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. More questions the better. So keep the questions coming over time and remarks.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.